We begin with silence. The silence of death, the silence after destruction. There are times when songs falter, when darkness fills life, when martyrdom becomes a constellation of faith against the unrelieved black of space about us. There are no words to reach beyond the edge of night, no messenger to tell the full tale. There is only silence. The silence of Job, the silence of the 6 million, the silence of memory. Let us remember them as we link our silences, as we ask Tess to come forward to light the candles.
אשרי הגפרור שנשרף והציל לטבו. אשרי הלהבה שבהרה בסתרי לבבות. אשרי הלבבות שידעו לחדול בכבוד. אשרי הגפרור שנשרף והתחיל להבות. Blessed is the match consumed in a kindling flame. Blessed is the flame that softly burns in a heart's secret place. Blessed the hearts that like flickering lights knew to flutter and die without shame. Blessed is the match consumed in a kindling flame.
In the presence of eyes which witnessed the slaughter, which saw the oppression the heart could not bear, and as witness the heart that once taught compassion until the days came to pass that crushed human feeling, I have taken an oath to remember it all, to remember not once to forget. Forget not one thing to the last generation, when degradation shall cease to the last, to its ending, when the rod of instruction shall have come to conclusion. An oath, not in vain, passed over the night of the terror. An oath, no morning shall see me at the flesh pots again. An oath, lest from this we learned nothing. The wise child asks, "Please explain to me the details of the Holocaust." To this child you respond, "The story of the Holocaust is long and complex. It begins with the history of Christian anti-Semitism and German nationalism, and concludes with the defeat of Germany and the liberation of our camps. Our libraries contain many books. Our educational institutions offer many courses. Go and study." The wicked child says, "Why do you care about what the Nazis did to them?" The child says, "You and them and not we and us." To this child you must respond, "You separate yourself from the Jews of Europe. If you had been there, the Nazis would not have recognized the separation and you would have perished. By separating yourself from the community which honors the memory of the 6 million, you place yourself on the side of the Nazis' collaborators, those who aided them in their attempt to destroy the Jewish people." The simple child asks, "What is the Holocaust?" To this child one replies simply, "So many years ago there arose in Germany a group who called themselves the Nazis, led by a man named Adolf Hitler. They wanted to destroy all the Jews in the world. They killed 6 million of our people before they were stopped." The child who does not know how to ask looks at the burning yahrzeit candles with questioning eyes and silent lips. To this child we say, "We light these 6 candles to remember the 6 million Jews who died during the Holocaust."
Ani ma'amin, ani ma'amin, ani ma'amin, me'emuna shelema, beviat HaMashiach, בביאת המשיח אני מאמין, ואף על פי שיתממע, עם כל זה אני מאמין, אני מאמין, אני מאמין, אני מאמין, באמונה שלמה, בביאת המשיח, בביאת המשיח אני מאמין, ואף על פי שיתממע, עם כל זה אני מאמין, אני מאמין, אני מאמין.
During the Holocaust, 3 scholars put God on trial. They felt God was wrong, but after they said it, they all began to pray to God, maybe for God.
יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה,
אמן.
ויאמר יברך ירצה, וימליך מלכותה בחייכון ויומכון וחיי דכל בית ישראל, בגלה בזמן קריב אמרו
Amen.
יהי שמי רבה מברך, לעולם ימי המיה יתברך. יתברך וישתבח, ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתעלה, שמי קודשה בריחו. לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, דמירן ביומה ואמרו
Amen.
ברכו את אדוני המבורך, ברוך אדוני מבורך לעולם ועד, ברוך אדוני המבורך לעולם ועד.
Our God, creator of the universe, we come before you in the darkness of evening with memories of a terrifying night. And we respond, a night which did not pass, and a day
which did not dawn, a time when the earth was a planet gone bloody.
A night when countless numbers of our people were tortured and murdered.
O God, listen to our memories, the nightmares of our longest night.
One can hear the sleepers breathing and snoring. Many lick their lips and move their jaws. They are dreaming of eating. You not only see the food, you feel it in their hands. You are aware of its rich and striking smell. Someone in the dream holds it up to your lips, but circumstances prevent the consummation of the act. So our days, our nights drag on. The dreams are woven into indistinct images. The suffering of the day composed of hunger, blows, cold exhaustion, fear, turns at nighttime into shapeless nightmares of unheard of violence. One wakes up at every moment frozen with terror, shaking in every limb. For the whole duration of the night, cutting across the alternating expectancy and terror of the moment of the revelry keeps watch.
Eternal of all worlds, who changes the times and varies the seasons, who arranges the stars in their courses in the sky.
Take notice of the long night of suffering when you seem so distant.
Remember when Israel, God's midnight singer, perished in a nightmare of darkness. Ahavat olam Beit Yisrael Amcha Torah ומצוות, חוקים ומשפטים, אותנו לימדת. על כן אדוני אלוהינו בשוכבנו וקומנו נשיח בחוקך ונשמח בדברי תורתך ובמצוותיך לעולם ועד. כי הם חיינו ואורך ימינו ובהם נגה יומם ולילה. ואהבתך תסיר ממנו לעולמים. ברוך אתה אדוני אוהב עמו ישראל. שמע ישראל אדוני אלוהינו אדוני אחד. ברוך שם כבוד מלכותו לעולם ועד. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך. והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם, בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
True and certain it is that you are the God of all the world. True and certain it is that your rule transcends all tyrants, redeems all suffering. After 400 years you redeemed us from slavery. You brought us out of Egypt with a mighty hand.
כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נהדר בקודש, נורא תהילות, אוסף אלה נורא תהילות, אוסף אלה מלכותך, ראו בניך בוקי הים לפני משה ומרים, זה לי ענו ואמרו, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. ונאמר, כי פדה אדוני את יעקב, וגאלו מיד חזק ממנו, ברוך אתה אדוני גאל ישראל.
Yet it is said, there is none like you among the mute, remaining silent and keeping still before those who inflicted suffering upon us, before those who crushed your people and burned them.
Show your wonders for all to see.
Restore the remnant of your people, and bring peace on us
upon us
again.
once again.
After our people endured unspeakable suffering, God redeemed us and saved us from total destruction. A remnant has survived.
There is new hope for the Jewish people. A remnant has returned to the land of Israel. Jews the world over rejoice in their heritage.
May you soon fulfill your promise of redemption for all the world. Praised are you, Redeemer of Israel. And together we rise as Mark continues on the bottom of page 9.
Praise are you, Adonai our God, God of Abraham, Isaac and Jacob, Sarah, Rebekah, Rachel, and Leah.
Who remembers the compassion of our ancestors.
Remember the loving kindness of our people. In my village, Pritzbords, there were tens of poor shopkeepers who had no money to buy merchandise for the fair, but there were always people who lent them money. When I think about those times, I can see how strong was the will to not let anyone perish, to help a poor person celebrate the wedding of a spinster daughter.
God of our fathers and mothers, who remembers the suffering of our people.
Remember Jacob, firstborn in the grapple of gray morning, where all birth is written in blood upon dawn. Remember Rachel, who knows the place where the end of the way was torn in flames from the prophets' bodies.
Shield of Abraham and Sarah, remember those who perished. Remember those who fought. Remember those who survived. Remember and protect the people of Israel. Remember and bring redemption to their descendants.
Praised are you, Adonai, shield of our people.
Eternal One, you bind the living and the dead together in lasting fabric. You renew life beyond death.
You keep faith with those who sleep in dust. Keep faith with parents and children.
Keep faith, O God, with Arthur New. His daughter remembers. Before the Shoah, every Friday night my father went to the synagogue, came home and made Kiddush. When I was a little girl, he took my hand and we walked around singing Sholem Aleichem.
Keep faith, O God, with the child and her father.
Keep faith, O God, with those who were murdered at Treblinka. At the gas chamber, I was chosen to work there as a barber. The Germans needed the women's hair for their purposes. They told us, make all those women believe that they're just taking a haircut. We already knew that this room was the last place that they went in alive. Some of the people that came in on a transport from my town, I knew them. I lived with them in my town. And when they saw me, they started asking me, Abe, what's going to happen to us? What could you tell them?
Adonai, our God, keep faith with those who sleep in the dust. Bind them to you and to us in a lasting fabric.
You are holy. Your name is holy. And your creation praises you daily. You are holy, and human beings, each one created in your image, contain a spark of your holiness.
Dear God of holiness, remember those in ghettos and death camps who knew that life is holy and did simple acts of kindness.
Ilza, a childhood friend of mine, once found a raspberry in the camp and carried it in her pocket all day long to present to me that night on a leaf. Imagine a world in which your entire possession is one raspberry and you give it to your friend.
O God of holiness, remember those in the ghettos and death camps who knew that life is holy, yet took their own lives rather than cooperate in the killing of their people.
Adam Chernikov, president of the Jewish ghetto of Warsaw, realized that there was no future for the ghetto. The Jews would be killed. By 4 p.m. on July 22, he was to have 6,000 men, women, and children chosen for transport to the east. He's terribly worried that the orphans will be deported and repeatedly brings up the orphans. If he cannot take care of the orphans, then he has lost his war, he has lost his struggle. He killed himself on July 23rd.
Dear God of holiness, remember those who knew that life is holy and rebelled against those who inflicted death. Prisoners who met the trains at Auschwitz would give warnings, do something, fight
Fight back while you have your strength. In September 1944, there was a plan to blow up the gas chambers. There was a small Krupp factory nearby. Prisoners smuggled explosives, powder, and small arms. The men working in the gas chamber started to blow up the gas chambers. 2 were destroyed.
Holy One of Israel, remember all those in ghettos and death camps who knew that life is holy. Praised are you, Adonai, the Holy One of Israel.
Baruch atah Adonai ha'el hakadosh. Please be seated. Eternal our God, comfort us on this day of remembering the Shoah.
Comfort all of us who are mourners for our people.
In Krakow on December 5, 1939, my uncle Maximilian Redlich was taken to the synagogue on Isaac Street and ordered to set fire to the scrolls of the law. When my uncle refused, he was promptly shot and killed. I spent 2 weeks in Majdanek. Each day during roll call, young women were ushered into the gas chambers. If one had a bandaged leg or had blisters as a result of sunburn or a simple sore or was too tired to report for roll call, she was doomed. At Sobibor, at first the bodies weren't burned, they were buried. In January 1944, we were forced to begin digging up the bodies to be burned. When the last grave was opened, I recognized my whole family. Mom and my sisters, 3 sisters with their kids. They were all in there. We mourned for murdered families and friends. We mourned for those we did not even know, but who are part of us.
The lightnings of sorrow do not allow the field of forgetting to fall asleep.
The blossoms of comfort are too small, not enough for the torment of a child's fear.
Will the Eternal desert us forever, showing us favor no more?
The Holy One said to Moses, "Do you not think that I am in pain just as Israel is in pain? I share in Israel's sufferings. That is why it is said in Isaiah, in all their afflictions, God was afflicted."
Adonai, remember and take heed. May you be the comforter of Zion, the rebuilder of your people.
Eternal One, remove grief and suffering from us. Grant healing for all our wounds. Sound the shofar for our freedom and redeem our people.
I will seek out my flock. I will rescue them from all the places to which they were scattered. I will bring them to their own land. I will bandage the injured, and I will sustain the weak.
In Israel, we have gathered up human particles and combined them into a fruitful and creative nucleus of a nation revived. We have built villages and towns, planted gardens, and established factories. We have breathed new life into our muted and abandoned ancient language. Such a marvel is unique in the history of human culture. In America, we opened up a business. Our kids went to yeshiva and college. Look what we accomplished. After all, we are strangers in the land, but we tried our best and raised a good family.
If the Jewish people can survive a Holocaust, they can turn from sorrow and toward rejoicing. Ritzei Adonai Eloheinu be'amecha Yisrael u'tefilatam be'ahava tekabel u'tehi leratzon tamid avodat Yisrael Yisrael Amecha Baruch atah Adonai
מודים אנחנו לך, שאתה הוא אדוני אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו ואמותינו לעולם ועד. סור חיינו מגן אישנו, אתה הוא לדור ודור. נודה לך ונספר תהילתך, על חיינו מסורים בידיך, ועל נשמותינו פדוקות לך, ועל ניסיך שבכל יום עמנו, ועל נפלותיך וטובותיך שבכל עת ערב ובוקר וצהריים. הטוב כי לא חלו רחמך, והמרחם כי לא תמו חסדיך, מעולם קיווינו לך. על הגבורות ועל תשועות, we give thanks for the courage of our people and for their mighty deeds, for their faithfulness and for the saved remnant which we commemorate today. In the days of the great European Jewish communities, the evil Hitler rose to power, plotting the destruction of all the Jews. Their plans to annihilate the Jewish people did not succeed, but 6 million of our people died, young and old, men, women, and children. Am Yisrael Chai, the people of Israel still lives. Today, as we remember and as we continue to live, let your name, our God and sovereign, be blessed and exalted forever and ever. God of our fathers and mothers,
we have asked, has God forgotten how to pity? And yet we acknowledge that you are the foundation of our lives and our hope. And we thank you for your wonders which we experience each day.
We thank you for the remnant which has survived, for those who built the land of Israel, for those who nurture Jewish life in all lands.
Shalom Rab al Yisrael Amecha Tasim Leolam Shalom Rab al Yisrael Amecha Tasim Leolam Ki Ata Hu Melech Adon Lechol HaShalom HaShalom V'tov Enecha Levarech et Amecha Levarech et Amecha Yisrael Bechol et uvechol shah bishlomecha Shalom Rab al Yisrael Amecha Tasim Leolam Baruch Ata Adonai HaMevarech et Amo Yisrael Bashalom.
Joining us this Yom HaShoah is Lauren Fox, author of 4 novels and, of course, most recently, Send for Me. We asked Lauren to be our speaker this evening, not only because she's a member of our congregation, but really because of her family history, reflected in various ways in her novel. And Lauren, you'll correct me if I get any of this wrong. Her maternal great-grandmother died of a broken heart trying to leave Germany, and her maternal great-grandfather died on a train to Auschwitz. It was her grandparents, along with her mother as a young child, who fled Germany to build new lives for themselves here in Milwaukee. Now, Lauren, the first piece I ever read of yours was I had to double check it, so thank God for Google, but I cut it out of the newspaper. That's how old I am, and I kept the newspaper, but I didn't keep the date on it. It was your column for the Modern Love column in the Style section of the New York Times. It was written, 2006? And you all can find out how Lauren met her husband and somewhat how she discovered the letters from her grandmother to her mother, fragments of which I assume were quoted directly in your novel. You were in your mid-20s as a graduate student and a teaching assistant working towards your MFA at the University of Minnesota when you met Andrew and you discovered that shoebox of the letters. Those letters became the source of your thesis and the seed of this novel. A novel about mothers and daughters, about those who fled Germany and those who remained. A novel spanning 4 generations from a Germany with the dark shadow of Nazism descending to a Milwaukee near the end of the 20th century. So for us this Yom HaShoah, a different generation of a speaker, one who perhaps can tell us how echoes of the Holocaust can be found all around us. So Lauren, I'm going to ask you to come up here and join me on that side. And I'm going to try to throw a few questions by you. And so the first question really, I wanted a quick synopsis of the novel, and I hope I did some justice to it, but I want you to be able to do it because you're, of course, the author.
That's the hardest question for the author. You did a great job.
I could move on if you want me to. So, how much of your family, we talked about silence as the service began. So how much of your family history was shared with you as you grew up? And then was the discovery of the letters, or the discovery of what was contained in the letters, surprise you? Because you do mention the silences in your family and the questions you wanted to ask, but were afraid to ask.
Yeah, I didn't really know much about my family's history. I mean, I knew, obviously, that my grandparents and my mom were from Germany because they had thick accents, at least my grandparents did, but they didn't talk about it much with us. I think they were trying to protect us, and I think their idea was the past was the past, and the, life in America was there was a firm line between the past and the present. So they didn't share much with us. I kind of knew, I can count on one hand the sort of details that I know about where they came from and how they came here. And I learned a lot when I discovered the letters. It took a long time to get them translated, so it was kind of like a long process of getting to know them.
So, how specifically did you discover the letters in your parents' basement?
Well,
or did you kind of know about them all those years?
No, I didn't know. I had no idea. I don't think my mom knew either. My grandparents lived in Shorewood when I was growing up, and then the last few years of their lives, they lived with us in Fox Point, and all of the contents of their apartment ended up in my parents' basement. And after they died, I was just going through their things, just looking through them for, memories and tokens of them, and I discovered this little wooden box, and I opened it, and there were about 75 letters on onion skin paper tied in a pink ribbon, and written in a German script that I couldn't understand. And it was an old-fashioned German script. So, my mom's first language is German. She couldn't make heads or tails of them either because this script was only taught, I think, until like World War I. So if you learned to write then in Germany, that's the script that you used. So but I knew they were special, and I knew that they were going to be meaningful to me, and I knew I had stumbled on something kind of magical. So I took them back with me, with my mom's permission, to Minnesota, and I found a German professor there who was able to translate them for me.
And so, where are the letters now?
I have them. My mom has some of them, and I have the rest.
And at some point, where do you think the letters ultimately will go?
I don't know. I've been asked that question before, and I don't know what I should do with them. I'm not sure.
And as you'll tell by one of the questions I'm going to ask, I'm painfully aware of that kind of script and language.
Oh.
Even when the script is in English of some form, I have immense difficulty reading it.
Yeah.
So I'll come to admitting it here in one form. Okay. You talk about inherited trauma.
Mm-hmm.
And one quote from your book resonated so deeply with me as my wife was a child of survivors. And so for years we tried to get my mother-in-law to help us understand many of these letters that she had, some of which she had written. And so your character Claire, who I assume was named after in the book, the great-grandmother Clara, right? You set her kind of in your generation, right? She's trying to explain her family situation to a possible mate. I think that's right. Mm-hmm. And she thinks to herself how hard this would be because, quote, she was an obligation and reparation, rupture and remedy. Would you be willing to go? Because I assume you're speaking in that case for yourself too. Mm-hmm. And it goes back to, I think, the notion of inherited trauma.
The characters in the book kind of mirror, they're fictionalized, but they mirror the four generations. So Claire is the one who most closely resembles me. And I do feel like I sort of grew up with that feeling that personally, all I ever wanted to do was move back to Milwaukee, have babies, and hand them to my mom. And I did. I mean, I feel really lucky that I was able to do that. But it did feel kind of like an obligation in the best way, a way of sort of, I don't know, almost closing a circle, like of healing a wound that was, maybe impossible to heal in some ways, but that the only way to sort of make our family whole, was to have babies and, kind of keep the line. I almost don't remember writing that part about rupture and remedy, but I felt that way all my life.
I read those words and I cried. Because in a different way, I lived with it all my life, differently than you did, but it was always a part of, in our family, always. Though it's hard to believe, it's one of the reasons I'm in Milwaukee, not exactly for yours, but we could never live too far away from my wife's mother. So what motivated you to finally return? So you used those letters to write your master's thesis, but then it took you another 25, 30 years.
25.
25. I'm trying to, so you did this in the mid-90s, right?
Yeah.
That's when, so what motivated you finally to take what you had tried to do in some form back then, 25 years ago, and ended up with the novel today?
Well, a couple of things. My husband always says, tell everybody it was me. And he really did. He played a big role, and he kind of kept the fire burning. Like in the years when I thought, okay, I'm done with this. The memoir version of this story didn't really work. I was too young, I think, to write a memoir. I hadn't really lived enough. And I put it aside, and I decided to write lighter. I decided to turn to fiction, and so I wrote, about love and heartbreak and betrayal and, lighter subjects like that. But, I thought I was done with it because it's a hard topic to write about, and it's draining. But he kept saying, I really think you're onto something here. And actually, in 2015 or 16, he was like, you've written 3 novels. Maybe you should think about fictionalizing this, which actually hadn't occurred to me. And, Trump was in office, and he instigated what we referred to as the Muslim ban, and that was really powerful for me. I really was like, oh, we really haven't learned that much from our history after all, and it really was that was a hugely motivating factor for me to return to this project.
So, in your note at the end of the book, you begin by writing, "Children of immigrants are anthropologists of our own family. We're participant observers of cultures we live in, but that will never quite belong to us." So, not to embarrass them, Tess, I'm sorry I'm going to do this, but this must not be the first time this has happened, or Molly, who's not with us in person
Right.
here. But what might that say now about our own children and this next generation? I'm not asking you, Tess, I'm asking your mom.
I don't know. I think, my generation, I think, was more of the blank slate. And I think we talk about it more now. And of course, my kids have read the novel. I don't think they are experiencing this history in the same way because, just because I didn't live through it, I'm much more able to talk about it than even my mom was, and she was just a baby when she came here. So I think probably my kids don't feel so much like anthropologists. I think they receive this history through conversation and through my work.
So you did an interview, or you did a program for the Wisconsin libraries, where you said something about when one of your daughters read the book for the first time, and you talked about her reaction. Was it you, Tess, or was it your sister?
Yeah,
your sister?
It was Molly, yeah.
Are you willing to share that?
Yeah, I get kind of choked up thinking about it. She read the book for the books came, you get ARCs, advanced reader copies, and so they're not the hardcover book, and it's the first time you see your book as a physical thing. And the kids each grabbed one and sat on my couch in my office and started reading, and Molly started crying. And I do get choked up talking about it, even though it was 2 years ago. She said, you mean Grandma never saw her grandma again? And I think that was the moment that she really owned this history, even though we had talked about it a lot. And I don't think I ever, I've always been really open about it, and she's talked to my mom about it. But I think that reading the novel was a moment for her when she kind of came to this history as almost like a physical thing. And I think I don't want to overstate the experience, but I think it kind of became a part of her in that moment. I remember Tess and I were kind of looking at her like, but you knew this already. But it was just a moment for her that it kind of came together.
Wow. I want to, if you're willing, open it up if any of you have some questions that you'd like to share, and I'll repeat them so people out there can hear it too. Not one? So I'll ask one more. Okay. I know because you talk about this, because you ask, have you ever gone back to Germany? And you talk about, in the book, and I assume it was probably somewhat similar to the reaction, did you ever ask?
Yeah, the line, or the scene in the book where Claire asks, actually I can't, is that in the author's note maybe? I think, because this is what happened. I asked my grandparents just once when I was a child if they ever wanted to go back to Germany, and like a silence just dropped onto the room. And I remember my grandmother was cooking and my grandpa was sitting peeling potatoes, and they just didn't say a word, and which was not like them. And then my grandpa just said no, and I felt like I backed away from a flame. It was just I knew I wasn't really. I mean, they were warm and wonderful people, but I knew I wasn't supposed to talk about that.
So did you ever go?
Yeah, I've been a few times, and in fact.
So how old were you the first time?
I was in my 20s. And then we went, my family and I went, my husband was teaching there. He teaches at UWM, and they have an exchange program at a university in Gießen, which is in the same general vicinity as where my mom was born and my grandparents were from. So again, my husband, he's getting a lot of credit right now. I'm not sure why. He did a lot of background and a lot of research, and this was before I started writing the book, and he was really interested in it, and he connected with people, like local historians and people in the towns where my grandparents were from. So it was kind of a cool way to learn about this history because I wasn't taking notes and I didn't think I was writing this book, so I was just kind of taking it all in. So we went to both of those areas and explored and walked around and kind of learned about the history of the towns.
So they had a butcher shop, right?
They owned a butcher shop.
Was the building still there, or the home? It was
It's a
still
furniture
there.
store now, yeah.
Did you talk to anybody?
No, it was so weird. There was some sense that they didn't want us there. Our tour guide said they've got a weird relationship with this building, and I still haven't, this is like 7 years ago, and I still haven't really processed this. We stayed far away from it. I thought we should go in and introduce ourselves, but it was made clear to us that wasn't what they wanted.
Wow.
Yeah, I guess that kind of makes sense, but it was a strange experience.
So I won't pronounce the German correctly, but the Stoppelstone, is that how you?
Stolperstein.
Thank you.
I think that's how you say it. I don't know either.
Are there some that you've made sure that they're there for your great-grandparents?
Yes, for my grandmother's, most of my grandmother's family, her parents and aunts and uncles, and yep, they're little gold blocks, and they're like set into the cobblestone, and they commemorate where a Jewish person died, where they lived, and when they were deported or, otherwise died during those years. And so there are many in that town for my family.
I'm going to thank you for allowing this short conversation.
Thank you.
I will encourage those of you who haven't yet read the book. Our library has a copy. You can also purchase copies. Oh, what, Mark? We have some? Scott.
Yes.
Oh, you got a question. I'm sorry, Scott. I didn't see your hand.
So this will probably come as a surprise to you, but you and I are cousins.
Right. So Scott Stern is talking and just surprised Lauren. I'm only doing this so the mic picks it up by saying that the two of you, Scott Stern and Lauren, are cousins.
We are.
Scott, if you want to come forward to talk into the mic.
It's like, what's that show, the Maury Povich?
So your grandfather and my grandmother were brother and sister.
Oh, wow.
And when I was a boy, I used to play at your grandparents' house in Shorewood.
No way.
I did. We've never met, but
Oh.
my father and your mother are first cousins.
Holy cow.
And so when I saw this tonight, I thought, you don't normally get to go to hear about a story of somebody who wrote about Ilsa and Berber.
Yeah.
Okay, and so I knew them well.
Wow.
And anyway, so I have plenty of stories to tell you maybe afterward.
For sure. It's nice to meet you.
Yes, my father was born in Germany, anyway,
Wow.
so.
I'm so glad you're here. Thanks for
Yeah, so
introducing yourself.
I definitely want to see your book, and I want to introduce myself. But it'd be great if we could chat after you stay for a little bit.
Yeah, let's definitely.
Talk to you, but in fact, I should tell you that one of our other cousins did a family history that they traced on your grandfather's side back to the 1820s. He did the whole family history, and I'll be able to share that with you. If you're
Oh, wow.
interested.
Yeah, thanks.
Very interesting. But anyway, so I just thought I don't really have a question. I just thought I'd introduce myself.
Wow, it's great to meet you. Thank you.
Sorry for the surprise.
Well, this is
It's a small world.
Yeah.
This is wonderful.
Yeah, it's
The tangled
amazing.
network of family. Wow.
Anybody else related to me?
So I'll see you after.
And let me also, so Lauren, and if we get your book, I'm sure we can track you down so we could get you to also autograph it.
Of course.
We also, afterwards, if you're interested in picking up the Yom HaShoah Yortzeit candles, similar to the ones that the six that Tess lit before the service or as the service began, just check with Mark Holland, and he could help you with that. Mark, just raise your hand again so people can see you, okay? Thank you. Oh, who did? I heard, oh, Mark, yeah.
Perhaps Mark could come up so that other people on Zoom can hear. If you want to come up to the middle table, the reading table, people can hear you.
How's that? Better? It will be. How did you find this professor?
You have to come in front of the mic.
How did you find this professor to translate these letters? What was the process? I was just really curious because without that happening, no book.
Right, yeah, I mean, I was having a really hard time finding someone to translate them, and I just called the German department at the University of Minnesota, and they connected me with this man, and he, I thought he would just give me people to talk to or just connect me with someone, but he, his name was Gerhard Weiss, and he had survived, he died just a couple years ago. His father was Jewish and his mother wasn't, so he survived the war in Berlin, passing as a non-Jew, and so when I presented him with this project, he had obviously like a personal interest, and he sort of took me under his wing, just out of the goodness of his heart. And I would bring these letters to him, like 2 or 3 every week. We had a standing appointment, and I'd have my little tape recorder, and he'd read them out loud and translate them as he was reading them. And then I would go home and transcribe them.
That's a story.
I know it, yeah. I know, I'm sad that he died, because I would have loved to have been able to share this book with him.
And so I'm just going to ask one more then, just to make sure I was correct. So while I know that this is historical fiction, but the actual quotes from the letters, which are on these separate pages, those are the actual...
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I felt like when I decided to turn it into fiction, from memoir, I felt like the one thing I needed to hold on to was the truth of these letters.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And we're going to continue with Aleinu. You'll find it on page 15 or before you on the screens, as Together We Rise. Oh, I was wrong. Please be seated. I was wrong. Thank you, Cantor. We're going to continue with Eli, Eli. You'll find it still on page 15.
Eli, Eli, שלא ייגמר לעולם, החול והים, רשרוש של המים, ברק השמיים, תפילת האדם, החול והים, רשרוש של המים, ברק השמיים, תפילת האדם. Oh God, my God, I pray that these things never end. The sand and the sea, the rush of the waters, the crash of the heavens, the prayer of the heart, the sand and the sea, the rush of the waters, the crash of the heavens, the prayer of the heart.
As now we rise.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתקנו לעד יוצא בראשית, שעולסנו כגאי הארצות, ולשמנו כמשפחות אדמה, שלא שם חלקנו גהר, וגורלנו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא.
In the anguish of the Shoah and in the deliverance of a remnant, we see you, our God. In
Light and in darkness, we affirm that you are our Creator, the one who walks with our people through history, the one with whom we walk through our own lives.
You are the one in whom we place our trust that you will remember the hopes of the slain by redeeming your shattered world.
You are the one in whom we place our trust that in spite of everything which strangles hope, you will help us to continue the sustaining song of their lives.
You are the one who strengthens our efforts to bring peace and justice to the world.
You are the one who strengthens our resolve to keep our people alive.
Creation follows destruction. Destruction follows creation. With Tessa's help, we lit 6 candles earlier to commemorate our dead. Within 25 hours, these candles will flicker and die and return to darkness. All too often, we also begin to forget, and we must not let this happen. So in a moment, I will kindle one more light, another Yortzeit candle to which we return each season. After we do, we will recite our prayer of memory and then our words of praise, which our poets intertwine with the memory of suffering.
El male rachamim shochen b'meromim hametzeh menucha nechona tachat kanfei hashechina b'ma'alot kedoshim u'tehorim kezohar harakia mazirim את נשמות 6 מיליון אחינו ואחיותינו שנהרגו על קידוש השם אנא בעל הרחמים הסתירם בסתר כנפיך לעולמים וצרור בצרור החיים את נשמותיהם Adonai hu nachalatam v'yanuchu b'shalom al mishkebotehem v'nomar Amen.
Fully compassionate God on high, to our 6 billion brothers and sisters murdered because they were Jews, grant clear and certain rest with you in the lofty heights of the sacred and pure, whose brightness shines like the very glow of heaven. Source of mercy, forever enfold them in the embrace of your wings. Secure their souls in eternity. Eternal One, they are yours. May they rest in peace as we all say. Amen. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shmei Rabbah.
Amen.
B'alma divra kirutei v'yamlich malchutei. B'chayechon u'v'yomechon u'v'chaye dechol Beit Yisrael. Ba'agalal v'zman kariv v'yimru. Amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevorach le'olam u'lalmei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh. V'yitadar v'yit'aleh v'yithalal shmedi dekudsha b'richu le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'dechemata Da'miran bi'alma v'imru amen.
Amen.
Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen.
Amen.
Osei shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen.
Amen.
May the one who makes peace in the high heavens above send peace down here to us, to all Israel, and to all the world, as together we all say,
Amen.
Amen.